Good morning, good evening, everyone. This is Anna Popławska from Imagination Global speaking. I can see that you are already here. Yes, good evening from different and various places in the world. I love this moment when I can see our international teachers gathered here to learn. So, first of all, my favorite question that I need to ask you, please write where are you from? Where are you watching us? Because that's kind of interesting information because I can see Bratislava, Ostrava, Ustka, Warsaw, Slovakia. All right. I'm so excited each time I have a webinar for you when I see people from, okay, Czeskie Budejovice. I hope that I pronounce it all right. And Croatia, oh my God, Hungary and Bratislava again. Oh my God, I'm so happy to meet so many of you. South Moravia, Macedonia, Mexico. Oh my God, Ophelia, what time is it now in Mexico? Ukraine, Kharkiv, all right, and Czechia. Oh my God, great. Really, 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 really nice. I'm so happy that teachers really want north of Macedonia. Oh my God, perfect. Wielkie Kapuściany, Slovakia. Sorry that I cannot pronounce all of the names properly, but I'm very, very excited that you are here. All right, so now we can have the proper beginning without this excitement of the speaker. And okay, Poznań, okay, I can see that also people from Poland, you're also very, very welcomed here. So again, the proper beginning. So my name is Anna Popławska, and I would like to welcome you today to our great meeting. I hope it's going to be great. I think so. I created, together with Luisa Witowicz-Waga, EduNation, one of the biggest teacher training communities in Poland, and we are developing worldwide. So that's the reason you're here, because that's our meeting. And today we will be talking about teaching vocabulary and vocabulary games. But before that, some household, I don't like this name, rules, but the webinar is being recorded right now. So you will get the recording tomorrow. You will also get a certificate to your email. And there's just one rule which is important during our meeting, is that we are all nice here. So we are a great teacher community, we are nice to one another, and we are very nice to the presenter. Okay, why not? Okay, so let's start, because I hate all of those long beginnings full of theory. So let's just jump in. Vocabulary games. All right. I love teaching teachers how to teach vocabulary because oh my God, sorry, Ophelia writes it's 2 a.m. in Mexico. Oh my God, Ophelia, thank you very much for coming live for my sessions at 2 a.m. All right. Okay, so teachers, okay, I will try to be concentrated, because I love talking to you, because there are so many interesting people coming, but I also need to teach you something. But I need to concentrate. You can relax. Okay, so teaching vocabulary, we as teachers, we just know that it's so important, right? That we need to teach vocabulary. And for many years, we've been doing that. And I found a slide that I used during teacher training on vocabulary around 10 years ago. And then I remember I was so proud of mind maps and of the word cloud and using post-its. Post-it was a kind of invention that we were able to buy as teachers, post-its. So I used to put them all over the walls everywhere in all of the classrooms where I taught. But still, the methods were quite ineffective, and very often long preparation of activities for each class took a lot of time. And I always teach a lot, so I have lots of classes and students. And over the years, I was always looking for some ideas. I was always looking for some ideas that would help me to be, on one hand, very effective as a teacher with my students, knowing the vocabulary, but also not requiring me very, very, hard and, just hard work. But so also, I noticed that without proper instruction from a teacher, my students quite didn't cope with learning and succeeding in learning the new vocabulary because they basically wanted to learn it all. So they thought that all of the words are important and they just wanted to learn it by heart. So that's the reason I really put lots of my heart into teaching vocabulary during classes. And today I'm going to show you some, I think, very, very basic ideas that are very, very simple to incorporate. Oh, and one more slide. I used to be a huge fan of traditional flashcards, all of those small pieces of paper that students just wrote their words, and they put into groups and then they revised. Now, when I teach my students, I also use small pieces of paper like flashcards, but just to revise vocabulary during the lesson, not just to pile them up at home just to revise, because there's better ways to do it. There are some apps, but that's not the topic for today's meeting, the applications and stuff. So probably I will have one webinar also about applications for that, so watch out for the free webinars. In Poland, we have this specialist, Tomasz Ruk, that I totally like, and I wanted to quote because he just wrote a book teaching foreign languages, and he just wrote a very nice paragraph on teaching vocabulary. And he said that conscious and progressive vocabulary learning is extremely important. It should be emphasized that memory traces are strengthened the most when we retrieve information from memory. Okay, so today during this webinar, I would like to show you how you can really use the memory and how you can retrieve the memory, the words from students' memories, but with games. But by games, I don't mean by not serious teaching stuff, but in a really, really way which is most effective, but through play. Okay, so through play will be today. Okay, and you will see that one of my favorite devices are flashcards. By the way, in 2 weeks' time, I will have a teacher training session full day, and you will see 60 almost ideas, no more than 60, not almost, how to use flashcards, because I'm a huge fan of it. Okay, so today we are going to talk about it. But before I just jump into the whole issue of games and playing, I always make sure before I start playing with my students' games, I always check the understanding of the meaning of the words. I always check if they really understand the words that we are going to use in a game in a second. But I also verify it in a kind of gamified version. Because, for example, one of my favorite ways to ask my students about vocabulary is to ask them about the difference between vocabulary. And sometimes I just display 2 or more words, and I ask them, okay, so what's the difference between this and that? What about the difference about between this and that word? Okay, so very often I try to make this part of a vocabulary revision quite dynamic. Okay, so I show 2 words and I ask my students to tell me, okay, what's the difference? And very often I prepare 10 or 20 sets of words, which are quite similar to one another, and we just talk about the differences, all right? Because as I said, I really, really want my students to understand the words before we start playing. Also, I almost always use my students to use them in a sentence, and to use them in a sentence true about themselves. So when we have some words, I always ask them, okay, so think how you can use the word elated in your case. Okay, so when was the last time you felt this way, and so on and so on. So I always want them to refer to what they felt, okay, how they used or would use this word in their life. Okay, so there is a lot of practice, which is not a game in itself, but I try to make it very dynamic. I try to make it very attractive, so they just keep revising it in a really gamified way. Because here I can just put some timers, so we can, for example, keep explaining vocabulary, for example, for 5 minutes or 2 minutes, and see how many words we manage to describe to our classmates. Okay, I'm going to show you in a second. But going back to this usage of words by students from their life, I think that linking the word with prior knowledge is very, very important. Okay, so I always want to refer to students' experience or their basic knowledge about given topics or vocabulary. It really helps me to build up their vocabulary this way. Also, I try to evoke emotions. So I try to look for sentences that are weird, controversial, or funny, or I look for funny pictures. And sometimes it's quite difficult to look for intelligent, funny pictures that you may use in a class. But there is a website from New York Times. I'm going to paste you in a chat a link to particular this slide section, which I really, really love. There are lots of different pictures which are not very obvious. I can see that there's just part of this picture on my slide. I think that it's not okay. I will share my screen because I can see that this picture hasn't uploaded fully. So I think that computer just stole part of the picture. I'll share you my screen, okay? Because yeah, so you should see this version, okay, of a guy hidden in a snow. So there are different things happening, and New York Times organized a really, really nice set of pictures with strange things happening. In the picture. So there are whole lesson plans altogether accompanying and my internet is so there is also a kind of lesson plan for each of the pictures. So I try also to connect the things that they see here with the vocabulary that I want to revise, because there are different sections on vocabulary. So there are strange pictures. So I try them sometimes. You'll see in a second activities for pictures. So I try always to look for really strange, really pictures which stand out. Okay, so in a second I'm going to show examples of activities, okay, that use pictures. So New York Times, they have very, very nice section on explain this image with whole lesson plans for students and teachers that you can use. Okay, so now let's move to the exercises, because I believe that almost 200 people are now waiting for the exercises because you want to get ready ideas. So the first exercise that I would like to show you is sushi. All right, sushi exercise. So I have words for my students. You can use also with sentences, but we prepare sushi, especially when you teach children. They really like it because we have a bowl of sushi. So it's basically a piece of, okay. Okay, so you'll see better. Okay, so it's a just piece of paper, okay, different pieces of paper. But so there's a big bowl, and my students have to use chopsticks to guess the word that they need to describe, or they need to draw, or they need to, for example, use in a sentence. So they just open it, and then we can have an exercise. Of course, we can just tell them, okay, so draw, just one word. But when I use gadgets, sometimes they use just pens or pencils as chopsticks. But when I just build this scenario of sushi revision, they really, really enjoy it. All right. So sometimes we for example, just take a word and they need to explain to their group, or they have, for example, 1 minute to describe what's happening, on their piece of paper. So it's a very, very nice exercise. Or they, for example, draw a category and they read aloud, and they need to, for example, list 10 words for a given category. So remember, it's just a tool. So you have used it for different activities. So remember that you can use the chat, all right? Because I know that a lot of people are watching me. So for sure, you have your own ideas. So share with the community, because I'm sure that you already have nice ideas how to use this exercise, okay? So please remember, okay, that you can just hide here anything and they can just draw different words. Also, what I did once, I had also a big box of sushi, word vocabulary sushi, and my students had 2 minutes to take as many words as they were able to, and then they had to use it in a story. That's another thing that I like doing. I like words which my students need to use, but I want them to touch them. Okay, so if I teach online, I display the words, but when I teach face to face, my students usually my students usually have, for example, 2, 3, or 5 or 6 words that they need to use in a story. So they are words that they can really see and they can move around, okay, and they can just put face down after they've used it, okay. So I like when words and vocabulary that they use in a story are more tangible, okay. So they have their list of words and they say a story and they tell a story and they just use all of the words that they can see on a table. When you teach adults and when you teach business presentations, that's the strategy I use for adults. So I have pieces of paper that they use needs to use in a presentation, and I also distribute it and or distribute them the cards. And when they deliver a presentation and when we practice it, they have particular phrases to use or full sentences to use or just words that they need to use when they say. And I've noticed that it's easier to use something new when you see it on a piece of paper than to try to remember the presentation or the story and a new word. All right. So I like, having this tangible, number of new words, items that you need to use in a story. With smaller children, the sushi idea works very, very well. They get so excited, but also you train their motor skills. So that's another thing that you can do with them. Okay. Another game is 5 seconds. Probably you know the game because there is a very famous game with this kind of stopper that gives a strange voice after 5 seconds. So in this game, students they draw a word, or then you can also use sushi for this game as well. Okay, so you take a piece of paper with 3 different words written, and then you have 5 seconds to maybe not 5 seconds to explain them. There are 2 games that now I've just realized that I'm telling you the 2 versions of the game. So in the 5 seconds, okay, you have a category. For example, you need to say 3 people from your family, okay, so 3 family members, okay, and then you have to say 5 family members, all right, or 3 things that you love eating, so then you have 5 seconds to give you 3 answers, all right. But you can do also the second way round, okay. You have 3 words and you need, for example, to add more words, okay. So when you have 3 words, you need to add 3 more words. So there are different ways how you can play the game, okay. So I always play this game in 2 ways because there are different things you revise basically. So once again, so either you, for example, draw a piece of paper when you have written a question, list 3 things. List 3 things you can eat in the morning. List 3 things you can do after school. List 3 things you hate about, I don't know, end of holidays. List 3 things or 3 people that belong to a family or whatever. And then you get the 3 words. And it has to be very, very dynamic. Or, as I said before, you can ask them to come up with 3 more words for the given category. So it's also very, very dynamic, and everyone loves to play it. I have a daughter who is 5, and this year she started playing that. There is this 5 seconds for kids edition, so it's very, very entertaining, and they revise vocabulary very, very fast in this way. Another game is the game called Take Two. So basically, you can also use sushi here, but they draw small pieces of paper where you have target vocabulary. So either you prepare the cards that they draw, or they do it beforehand. So you can ask your students to write, for example, 4 words on 4 separate pieces of paper that they consider to be quite important for the given unit or after the text that you've just read or you've discussed. So you can ask them to write 4 separate words, and you put all of the words in a box, and then they draw. So, but they need to draw 2. So they take 2 words, okay, and they need to make a sentence. Okay, for example, they have the word sibling and interest, all right, and they need to come up with a sentence in which they use both words. Okay, why it is better than just taking 1 word and creating a sentence, because with one word you can always create a sentence, okay, without even context or without any sense. Just say, oh, I like my sibling, okay, or there is no interest, and basically you have a sentence. But if you have two words, you have to find a logical connection between the two vocabulary items. That's the idea coming from Penny, or over years ago I heard this idea, and I very often use it because it's also no prep, totally very easy to prepare, and still we make quite a lot of sentences. Also, when you use your memory, you can use pictures, okay? So I have different sets of pictures now. When I use Canva, I don't need to prepare them beforehand. In the past, I need to look for them, download, and so on. Now I'm able to do it in my Canva account. So I look for a picture and I display it for example, 10 seconds, and my students have to remember as many words as they can from the picture, okay? So I just show it, I hide it, and they have to tell me as many words as they can. So in the beginning, they start coming up with very basic vocabulary like couch, people, coffee, table, wall, picture. But after that, they need to think harder, okay? So like we have talk to another, meet someone, anniversary, birthday celebration, and so on. So you can create a really lots of vocabulary. But also it's that depends on the picture you choose, okay? So the better picture you choose, the better vocabulary they come up with. The same can happen with a story, okay? So you can tell them a story and they need to remember all of the details. So you can use also target vocabulary, and you can hide vocabulary and just tell them the story, and then they need to retell the story, or they need to retell the vocabulary, for example, connected with appearance of the characters or the food that they ate in the story. So we can also play with that. When I think about vocabulary, I really love dictation activities. Dictations kind of got quite a bad reputation over the last years because students don't like dictations, but still, I really feel that it's a nice activity to check. Writing skills, I mean, the spelling of words and the pronunciation. If students can really hear it well, they know what they hear and if they can write the words. So very often, and the level of how much I gamify this exercise depends on the level, because when I have quite beginner students with very, very low knowledge and skills, I try to make their life easier so I don't complicate it. So I just tell them that I'm going to tell you 10 words, try to remember them. I'm going to repeat them 3 times and try to write them down, okay? But also when I have stronger students on higher levels, I can, for example, dictate 20 words, and I tell them, okay, so I'm going to repeat it just once, okay? So don't write anything. When you hear the words, when I stop, you can start writing, okay? So they have to keep their words in their memory, and it's more challenging, and they really concentrate. I can see in their face that, okay, they just keep repeating in the head, as many words as they can remember. Okay, so that's one of the things I do. Also, you can do it in a running dictation mode. That means that you can attach a list of vocabulary somewhere in your room, and you can ask students to run and rewrite the words. Okay, so they cannot take the piece of paper from the piece of paper somewhere that you attached. They just need to run there, read the words, and go back and write them down. So they can remember 4 words in one go, but sometimes just 3, and they have to run back and just check. And the class arrangement here is up to you. I mean, that depends how many students you have, how big the classroom is. Sometimes I play in a way that there are 2 teams, and just one student from each team can just run, reads the words, tries to remember, goes back and just dictates the words to the person who writes in this group. But also when you have smaller groups, you can ask everyone to run to the wall and just go back and rewrite the words from their memory. And again, you can do the same with a picture. So here, students have a picture located somewhere in the room. They have to run there. They have to look at the picture, and they have to either describe it or write as many words as they can that they can locate in a picture. Okay, so in the beginning, always it starts with really basic vocabulary, with basic things that are quite obvious. But after 10 or 15 words, they need to really think hard. Okay, what other words to put on the list to just win, because then you can compare what words different groups have used or have written down. So that's the way I use it and I play it. Okay. I am looking at the chat, but there's nothing. There are so many people in the room and you're so silent. Are you there? I'm not used to total silence during the webinars. Okay. Because, just write something, because, I hope that I'm not talking to an empty room. All right. Okay. Uh-huh. All right. I hope that you're there. Okay. So in case, I will just have a look on the chat. Okay, if you are still there. Okay, so I may ask you now what activities so far you've enjoyed and you think, oh, you are taking notes. Okay, good. Okay, because I love when people respond to me. Sound of silence. Okay, yeah, Maciej, I hate sound of silence. I think that I'm totally, I talk whole day with my students, with everyone. Okay, so the webinars are pretty strange, when I talk alone. Okay, another one, TikTok gloss. Very nice activity. It can be done in different ways. I will tell you how I do it. And I believe it's kind of traditional approach. But in the past, I used to use words that I found online somewhere. Okay, so in the past, I used to use vocabulary that I found in different places, different photos of the internet. But recently, I've started creating them with Midjourney. Okay, so I'm a huge fan of artificial intelligence in teaching, and I use Midjourney a lot. And I started creating pictures for my Dictagloss classes. So in this activity, my students don't see the picture, but Midjourney allows you to describe the picture, and computer generates the picture for you. So I can describe a picture to my students in the most detailed version I can, but because artificial intelligence created the picture for me, I get the best picture for my language class, because now I'm able to get a picture with the target vocabulary. So I have all of the words I wanted to revise, and Midjourney creates such a picture. And what I do, my students don't see the picture, okay? Don't see the picture, and I describe it, okay? I describe lots of details, and either, okay, they draw it by themselves, or they have to, after I stop describing the picture, they have to write the description of the picture. So sometimes I help them. So I tell them the story, I tell them the description of the picture, okay? And they have to write it from their memory. But when I have quite lower level students, I show them the picture, okay? So after listening to the picture, they get the picture, and then they have to write a very similar description, okay? But also, this kind of activity makes sense if you work on target vocabulary, not like, oh, I have great idea because I've been to a teacher training and they told me about this activity. But when I do it, I always work on target vocabulary. That's for me very, very interesting. All right, moving on to another exercise. So guess the category. So sometimes I list a list of words from different categories, and my students need to guess what is the common factor. Okay, so what's the category of the list that they get, but also after that, so when they have the category, for example, family, they have to add new words to the category. So I also can gamify it, because we can have a competition, which group or which pair of students, because I love students working in pairs when they compare ideas. For example, was able to come up with 20 or 40 new words, or who had the biggest number of new words that they just put on a list. So sky's the limit here. So they can really, really try hard to as many words as they can. Then they always ask me, Anna, can we use also verbs? I said, okay, go ahead, use some vocabularies, use some verbs, and they just come up with really strange ideas. And but they keep writing and they keep revising, and for me, it's the most important thing. Another activity that I like doing, I do it in a kind of two ways: a secret list. So I'll tell you first of all about the first way. So my students get a list of words. Also, usually they are target words. Okay, so it's target vocabulary that I really want them to practice. So there is, for example, 8 words, and I ask them, okay, to have conversations on a particular topic or create a story. That depends, of course, on the group, their interests and so on. But when they just talk, they have to keep um, crossing the words. Okay, so they need to use all of the words. Okay, and all of the words usually are from one category, and then the group that they talk to has to guess what the category of the words was. Okay, or you can also have a shorter list of secret words that they need to really use during the conversation, and then different people from the group have to guess what the secret words were used by the students. But then I try to come up with quite outstanding and really strange words that are easy to locate and also are easy to use because when you have a word Santa Claus in the middle of the lesson in May, it can be quite difficult to use it naturally, that no one really notices it. Okay, another game that I like playing with vocabulary is bingo, but it's not just for numbers. I play bingo for words. So my students just draw this grid 3 by 3, and they write their vocabulary. But you need to, first of all, specify the category. For example, the category can be food. So they write words connected with food. And then we have conversations or we build a story again. And when they hear the word, that someone uses their word, they have to cross it out. Okay. So then the same rules as in bingo apply. So either you have 3 words in a row or, like diagonally and so on. And then when you just have the line, you shout bingo. Okay, so instead of numbers, I use words, and it works very, very well. Of course, you can play bingo without talking on the lower levels, so you can just display a list of words, and students just choose which words they want to rewrite, and then you draw. Okay, so you can have a big drawing machine. I use this Kinder eggs, the yellow things like containers where I put words inside, and then I just draw it. I open it and I say like draw, right? And they just cross this word out. So there are 2 ways how you can do it. I'm a teacher who loves when my teachers speak, and of course I revise vocabulary in more kind of exercises where I concentrate more on vocabulary, but I always try to make them use it. I always try to speak. I always want them to speak, and that's the reason all of the games are kind of converted into speaking activities. Also, when we talk about games, one of my favorite games is memory. So my students usually prepare their own memory games, and they can play it in pairs, for example. So on one piece of paper, they write, for example, a word, and they write a definition or translation on the second piece of paper, and we just mix it, and we just put face down the words and the definitions, and they have to take 2 cards. If the word and the definition match, they just say it's a pair, and they take it and they get a point. Okay, so they have to put if it's not a pair, so they have to put back the word and the definition the exact the same places that they were previously kind of located, because then they have to remember where was what, and that's the very, very quick way to prepare a personalized memory game. I hate playing during my classes all of the games which are published by some companies for entertainment, even if it's in English, but because they don't revise my target vocabulary, they just revise basically nothing. They are just to entertain. So that's the reason I don't bring entertainment games to my English classes. Or I bring them, but I change the target words, okay? Because I need to practice and I need them to focus on vocabulary I want them to learn, okay? Not just on the pure entertainment factor, okay? Entertainment is important, but entertainment and education, as some people would say, importanter. That's a joke in Poland. It's more important, okay? Another very simple game is What is Missing. So I revise, usually I do it on very, very low levels. So in the beginning, we revise vocabulary. It can be a flashcard or it can be just a written word. And we say, okay, it's a chair. Okay, so let's revise a chair or a pencil. Okay, a pencil, a telephone, a telephone. And we just put everything, on the table. And then I ask my students to remember, okay, as many words as they can, close their eyes, and then I just take one thing and I ask them, okay, so what's missing? And they, of course, look at the table and say, okay, Anna, a pen is missing. Oh, yeah, a pen is missing. So then I ask them to close their eyes again. And again, they close their eyes and just take two things. Okay, so they open their eyes and there are two things missing. And then we just keep playing till the moment when I just take all of the cards. Okay, so usually I take them by surprise. So, like the fourth or fifth time, all of the words are gone and they just open their eyes like, oh my God, let's revise. Okay, there was a pen. Okay, there was a telephone. Okay, there was I don't know, table, okay, on the table. So they have to revise and recall all of the words. But there's also another way you can do it. And when you have the list and you have, all of the 10 words, you can ask them to remember the order in which you place the words, okay? So you can just say a table, a pen, and a telephone, and so on. And then they have to remember it. They close their eyes, and you just dislocate some of the things, and they open their eyes and they have to decide what's wrong in the order, and they have to correct it. Okay, so it's also a game which uses memory of your students on a very, very low level. And this game is also very, very easy to prepare, because sometimes I don't use these beautiful flashcards. I just write the words on a piece of paper. Very often I create flashcards during the lesson with my students when I ask them about the vocabulary that they find really important, the most important words from the following unit, and they just write it with a marker, okay, on a piece of paper, and we just play, for example, this game or a different one, okay? The thing that I love doing with my students are charades, also very, very easy. So I display tasks on a piece of paper or on a table or on a blackboard. That's the word I was looking for. And we just throw a dice, okay? So my students just draw a word, okay? They throw a dice and they see what they have to do. So for example, they have 3 and they just have, okay, I have to draw it. Okay, so my students just draws a picture on a blackboard and the class guesses what the word is. You can also play charades in pairs, okay? When you have classes, for me, a crowd to do something in open class is more than 4 or 5 people. So when I have classes more than that, I always work in pairs. So the number of people is not a problem. The biggest class that I used to teach was like 100 people in Indonesia. Indonesia, they really have like crowds in classes, but then you use pairs, okay? You use pairs, you use groups. So it's not a problem to play charades in pairs. So first of all, you can have a dice on the mobile phone. There is lots of free applications like throw a dice on the telephone, and they can, for example, throw a dice on the telephone and they just draw a word, and you can see what they have to do. Or you throw one dice for the whole class, for example, or they just go one by one, okay? So they have to provide the definition, use in a sentence, and draw it, and so on. For all of the words, it's up to you. But my students usually use their telephones to throw a dice, or I have bigger number of dice, dices that I just distribute and they can use it. Another thing, I mean, I told you today lots of ideas, is a crossword. I love having crosswords and I love creating crosswords. In a second, I'm going to show you how I do it in a very, how to say, quick way. Now you should see. No, you don't see. Now you should see WordWall. WordWall, that's my favorite application. I'm going to paste you the address. Up to 5 games you can create for free, but that's the application that I just pay, and I don't regret a single penny that I spend on WordWall. I think I pay just €5 per month or something like that, or even less, I think. But still, I have here lots of different vocabulary activities. They are ready activities, but you can play it online, okay? Just having a words. You create it within seconds, but I'll show you about the crossword. There is a very nice button here, print. And then when I press print, I have different like versions to print it. One of them is crossword. So I can create a crossword from sentences that and words that I just found here. So when I press download, I'm able to download it, okay, in beautiful version to print out. And there are so many different materials already present, already created by different teachers. Even if you can see interactive version, remember that almost each activity, you can download in a PDF version of a crossword or a matching exercise. So it's pure magic for me how easy it is to do something in this way. I really, really like this way of revising vocabulary. Another thing is emoji. So I use emoji a lot with my students to revise vocabulary, to write stories, for talking activities. Especially teenagers like it. And how I create stories using emojis. There are lots of websites. I will paste in a link in a second. The machine that I use, the website that I use, it's called PixArt emoji. So basically, if you want to write something with emoji here, I will just, you have different kinds of emoji. You can just look for different emojis, okay? Not this one I wanted to show you. Here you have categories, they work better. All right, so you can just write sentences, and the sentences, of course, here can have different emojis. So when you just press the pictures, you can just type copy, and all of the emojis are copied. Okay, you don't see the website because I haven't shared the website. Now you'll see. Okay, so again, look, here you have all of the smiley faces. Okay, I will just delete it and I'll start from beginning clues. So you decide on a story and you have different emojis, all right, with different product, different things. And if you want to copy it, you just copy it and you paste it wherever you want. Okay, so I will just paste it in a chat so they will work everywhere. So of course, when you use Mac, there is also a shortcut in Mac in the keyboard, but this website works quite well. Toolspeaks.com if you want to create activities with emojis. So they can be very, very funny. So sometimes we have some puzzles that they need to solve, or they have to write the stories, or I can combine teaching vocabulary and grammar just using emojis, because emojis are very easy to be interpreted, and that's the reason students can be very, very creative in this way. All right. Whew, I managed in 45 minutes. Can you imagine that I was so punctual today? So I hope that you liked the activities I showed you today. I tried to cover as many things as I was able to do in 45 minutes, and I succeeded. First time in my life. But still, remember that you need to repeat new words. You need to revise new words. And the more you repeat, the more students will remember. Okay, I even just ate the last word here. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed the activities. It was just a small sample of the activities I would like to show you during our meetings. And at the end of our meeting, I would like to remind you that there is a really, really nice teacher training with me soon. All right. So there will be Spice Up Your Class, the best non-prep ideas for language lessons. I'm going to host it. I'm going to have 5 hours with you. So there will be more than 60 activities. I calculated them today. 60 is still not true. There will be more than 60 ideas and games for your classes, all of them totally non-prep, so very easy, very non-time consuming. I know that lots of people have already signed up, so I can't wait to meet you. I also created an ebook with all of the activities that you will be able to print and just have with you and use them when you want. So if you want to meet me, you are invited, all right, because today we finish the early bird price. Okay, so today is the end of early bird price. That means that tomorrow it will be more expensive, so it's better to buy now than tomorrow, and so on. But still, thank you very much for coming today. I hope that you would like to take part. Okay, Spice during see you. Krotok, see you also during Spice Up Your Class. The training will be very, very nice because we'll have activities for all of the most important areas for speaking activities, listening activities, vocabulary activities, grammar activities, revision activities, and writing activities. So that will be everything during Spice Up Your Class. Very, very intensive workshop with just practical ideas. There will be no theory. I hate theories. I believe that teachers had theory during universities, and now we need something practical. So I hope that we are going to meet during the Spice Up Your Class, and see you and have a good night. Thank you very much. Bye bye. By the way, remember about our Instagram, okay? I'm on Instagram, and Edunation Global is also on Instagram. Edunation.global, okay? And there is a present also. So when you visit Edunation Global on Instagram, there is a present to be downloaded for European Day of Languages. All right, so that was everything I wanted to tell you. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.